For our guest speaker today, we have invited Ms. Nicole Atoyan, a member of the Armenian National Committee of San Gabriel Valley. Nicole is also the current chairperson of the Education Department for the Armenian Youth Federation, the San Gabriel Valley chapter. Nicole attended Mesopotamia Armenian School, graduated from Lucerna High School, and earned a bachelor's degree in finance from USC. At present, she is preparing to enter a master's program in the field of finance. We are very grateful that she took the time from her busy schedule to be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Nicole Atoyan.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Atoyan, and I'm a second-generation Armenian American. Montebello High School evokes wonderful memories for me from several of the stories I've heard from my mother, my aunt, and my uncle who have all attended here. It is a privilege to be here with you today to speak with you about the Armenian Genocide, an event in history that is so close to my heart. Throughout my life, in addition to the colorful high school memories that my family shared with me about their time at Montebello High, they also shared a darker side of our family history. How the Armenian Genocide, which continued through 1918, tore apart my great-grandparents from their homes, their siblings, and their parents. The genocide left my great-grandparents orphaned. As children, my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather met as they were placed in the same orphanage. They later married. My great-grandparents birthed my grandmother, who had my mother, who grew up listening to my great-grandmother's memories of watching her mother die in front of her while marching through the desert. A march led by Ottoman Turks, led to kill all its participants by starvation or exhaustion. Years ago, during a trip to Armenia, my aunt found a list of orphans from 1916 in an orphanage she visited. Among the hundreds of names on that orphanage roster was my great-grandmother's name. Pages and pages of names of orphans were on that roster and recorded on in the orphanage roster sponsored by the Armenians living in America to care for the children left behind by the Turks who murdered their parents and left their children to die. There were several columns on each page of the roster. There was a column for the child's first name, his or her last name, hometown, age, and a place to note whether or not they had a mother or a father left. That last column for my great-grandmother read none. She was stripped of her mother and father at the age of 8, and I'm sure very few of us can imagine a childhood like that. This story is not unique to my family. Ask any Armenian family about the reason they had to flee their homeland, the reason they were dispersed all throughout the world, the reason some had to change their last names, the reason they became an immigrant generation living in fear, and the reason they held their persecuted Christian faith so dear. Every Armenian family has such a tragic story. One would assume that since 3 generations have emerged since the Armenian Genocide, and the new young generation lives in comfort and in freedom, that this young generation would lose the passion to commemorate and recognize an event that occurred so long ago. But I'm here to show you that that's clearly not the case. When asked why I passionately pursue this cause, I can only think of that 8-year-old girl who was herded into an orphanage with hundreds of other children. These children couldn't speak for or defend themselves. They endured first seeing their parents murdered. They later endured growing up in orphanages, not experiencing the joy of a mother's hug, or a father's warm embrace, or good advice from a family member. They raised themselves. They raised each other. And once old enough, they fled their country yet again, chased out by yet another world war. So when asked why I care so much, I see that little girl and her little sister watch their mother drop to the ground in front of their eyes, and I vow to myself never to give up the fight to recognize their struggle. I believe it is my responsibility to, at the very least, become involved politically, to be the voice of that little girl in the desert. I am happy to speak about my involvement in the Armenian National Committee of America and the Armenian Youth Federation in planning the largest Armenian Genocide commemoration event to date. An event that will take place on April 23rd of this year at the Armenian Martyrs Monument at Bicknell Park in Montebello. I am happy to speak about my involvement in the installation of the first freeway sign, the first sign on public soil, honoring the fallen victims of the Armenian Genocide. These events and emblems we construct are more than a commemoration and a demand for recognition. They represent our celebration as a people who triumphed over persecution. A celebration that we, an ancient people, retained our country, our identity, our culture, and most importantly, our persecuted Christian faith, when so many ancient peoples throughout history were left countryless and utterly destroyed. And not only did we retain, but we now thrive. A cause for celebration indeed. If my counterparts and I stayed silent and uninvolved about such events in history, a door is open to further forget also the Holocaust, the genocides in Darfur and Rwanda, and most recently, the genocide in Congo. When you see injustice, you don't stay silent, because in doing so, you partner with the perpetrator. Thank you.